Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Danion's Gaming Hub. My name is of course Danion, and welcome to the Arcane Wizard 2.1. Alright, and welcome to what you all been waiting for, Arcane Wizards 2.1. Blizzard decided to buff Arcane to hell, which is surprising to me because Arcane was for me one of the most interesting specs to play. Everybody was running with Frozen Orb and all that, and I was like, meh. So I decided to go for Arcane, and I've been stuck with it ever since. And now that 2.1 got released, I actually changed a lot of talents around for the 2.1 build. And I'm pretty sure you're going to love this because it's doing a hell of a lot of damage. It is seriously insane. It is a lot of fun. It feels like you're a glass cannon, and at the same time you're not. You're doing so much damage and you still have this high amount of survivability because they buffed life on hit and life regeneration. It is seriously insane. It's really nice. So what I'm going to show you in this video is the passive skills, as you can see right here, the ones I picked and the ones that you can choose in different situations. The normal skills and also the ones you can choose with the certain glyphs and everything. And then I'm going to show you a couple of videos where I farm the greater rifts, which increase in difficulty over time. I'm going to show you a couple of normal bounties and just a couple of nice skills on the elite packs and all that. So the passive skills, as you can see, the ones I have, I'm going for a little bit of a glass cannon build, and whenever I go into Torment 6, I choose a couple of different talents for demonstration purposes, and as in Glass Cannon, Torment 3, 4, even 5, I usually go with this because it does so much damage. The first passive skill I have is Unwavering Will. Now, what does it do? Standing still for 1.5 seconds increases the following attributes: armor 20%, all resistance 20%, damage 10%. Since we're going to use Arcane Torrent while standing still, because we're going to buff that 1000% weapon damage, we're going to be standing still. So this is like a god-given. This is like the best thing you have. More armor, more resistance, meaning you'll be able to take a couple of more hits. Mobs will be around you, especially with a couple of talents as that increases your resistance even more. We'll get to that as well. This will be a very, very powerful spell. A very powerful skill. You will be able to take a lot of hits, and it increases your damage even, which is very nice. The second skill I have, you deal 15% additional damage to enemies within 15 yards. This is awesome. Again, 15% damage on the already existing 10% that we already chose. So there's already 25% extra. This, however, stops when you move, but then again, 1.5 seconds is very, very short. And 15 yards is also very short because mobs, especially on higher torments, will always be near you. It is a little bit difficult to say. I mean, most mobs, and if you go for Glass Cannon, will be able to do serious damage to you. But if you go into groups, usually you're standing very packed together, mobs are all over you. This is a very powerful skill. You don't want to take Audacity with Temporal Flux. Enemies that take arcane damage are slow by 80% for 2 seconds. This is a very, very powerful skill, but these two do not match at all. I'm gonna save this one for last because it's very, very important for what we're going to use for Arcane Torrent. This is a god-given. You have to take this. But I'm going to go for Glass Cannon first in order to explain that one a bit, because it's a little bit, for me, it's like a must-have. Increases all damage done by 15%, but decreases armor resistance by 10%. The decrease, I don't really care about. I mean, I have so much stuff getting from all the skills and passives and everything. It's not really interesting. However, when I go into Torment 6, especially with a group, when mobs hit really hard, I usually take Blur over Glass Cannon. Decreases damage taken by 17%, but it also decreases my damage done and increases my armor and resistance. I could either go for Dominance. Killing an enemy grants a shield that absorbs 16k for 3 seconds. This effect can stack up to 10 times, which is really, really strong. Every time you kill an enemy, refreshing Dominance will set the shield to its maximum possible potency. So whenever a party member kills something, the shield will actually be applied. So in all fairness, I would take Dominance over Blur, but it's just a little bit of a playstyle what you want. I would take Dominance or either Blur if you want to go for that little bit extra survivability on higher torments. However, instead of increase all damage done by 15%, you can also go for Elemental Exposure, which is 20% more damage done if you have the time in order to put all elementals on the target. For example, that is Fire, Cold, Arcane and Lightning. So for example, here I have Fire, here I have Lightning, here I have Arcane, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, it's also Lightning. Well, as you can see, I'm not using Elemental Exposure because I currently only have 2. And this is Arcane. So actually, I'm applying 3 elementals out of the 4 on targets. On single target, for example, Skeleton King bosses or GOM or Rift bosses, Elemental Exposure is really good because you're almost all of the time using additional spells in order to cast. However, for the build I'm going for, I'm not taking Elemental Exposure because my Arcane Power regeneration is so high, I don't even have to regenerate anymore. The moment I cast my Electrocute, which we're going to get in just a couple of minutes, I don't have to cast anything else anymore. I'm just spamming Arcane Torrent to its maximum potency. So, what makes this all possible? It is Arcane Dynamo. When you cast a signature spell, you gain a Flash of Insight. After 5 flashes of Insight, your next non-signature spell deals 60% additional damage. Yes, 60%. The cool thing about this is, Arcane Torrent, unless you release your mouse button, is considered a continuous cast, meaning it will do 60% more damage. Hurl a ball of lightning projectiles, they'll deal 400 weapon damage as lightning to all enemies near the impact location. So this will be 460% weapon damage, up to 1000 weapon damage as lightning even. It is seriously insane, and it really makes a difference because this also works on your Blackhole, and Blackhole does a ton of damage when stacked up to Arcane Dynamo. On Torment 3 or 4, it just one-shots almost everything. It is absolutely insane. It is really, really cool. So Arcane Dynamo is definitely one of the spells that you have to take if you want to go for Arcane Torrent, because this is considered a continuous cast, meaning you will always do 60% more damage. This one is also a given if you're gonna go for Arcane Dynamo. These two are like combined to each other because you will be standing still. That is why Unwavering Will is like it's a god-given. It's you do not question it. The same goes for Audacity in my honest opinion, because if you go on high on Torments, mobs do not die that easily unless you go with at least Paragon 600 or even higher and have like the best in slot gear. And especially with the gems that are available right now from the rifts, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are already doing that. I am not one of those people, unfortunately. So Audacity or Elemental Exposure, it's either one of the two. It's that Arcane Dynamo changes the build so much that you cannot take Elemental Exposure over it. Otherwise you would have so much increased damage. It's very nice. The only thing that I would consider if you have trouble surviving, replace Glass Cannon, because that armor and resistance could be a little bit of a downfall. And Dominance or Blur in that case is very, very nice. Skills, there we go. Let's take a look at our first one, shall we? Normally I had Archon here. Archon is like, it was my escape card. It was so good. I always took Combustion or, what was it, increased damage of all Archon abilities. That's the one I normally took, especially on low Torment. Archon just blew everything away, and every 1.5 minutes you just had this massive damage dealing ability that just burned through packs. It was really cool. But then Blackhole got really, really interesting. Blackhole. Conjure a Blackhole at the target location that draws enemies to it and deals 700% weapon damage as Arcane over 2 seconds to all enemies within 15 yards. Since we're already going for Arcane, everything is already bumped up into Arcane damage. It's either Arcane Torrent or Arcane damage, so this is already even more. Supermassive increases the Blackhole radius to 20 yards and does its damage as lightning, which is unfortunate, but it is almost 30 100% weapon damage, which is insane. Consider that with the dynamic, with the Arcane Dynamo, 60% more damage. This is quite a lot. This is seriously a lot. So you could either go for, where is it? This one, Spell Steal. Enemies hit by Blackhole deal 10% reduced damage for 5 seconds. That's not really interesting. But this part, each enemy hit by Blackhole grants you 3% increased damage for 5 seconds. That is really cool. If you have a lot of attack speed and you can cast your signature spell really, really fast, so your Arcane Dynamo ticks, and you can start casting Arcane Torrent. I had it happen that I pulled packs into my Blackhole and I had like 25 or 30 stacks increased damage. It's like, wow. Yeah, I could really see my Arcane Torrent skyrocketing high up. But the fact that this is 20 yards just pulls almost everything in there. So this is also becoming like an escape card for when you are being trapped by mobs. You can just cast Blackhole. They will be pulled in. You will be able to walk away. So the moment you are like in a stress situation, Blackhole will be able to help you, especially with the 20-yard radius and the massive damage it does. And since everything is pulled really, really closely, your Arcane Torrent will be able to deal a lot more damage. And especially on group play or on higher torments, Blackhole is really nice because everybody can focus fire their damage onto that target. And especially when you have, for example, a monk that pulls everything in, and you can also pull in with your Blackhole. And then you have a witch doctor that pulls everything in with the piranhas. Then you have like 3 or 4 people that just pulls everything very close, so you CC everything, and that way you bring just so much more ability to the party. That is why I like Blackhole. Blackhole is super massive, as you can say, and it's really, really versatile. For the signature spell, I went with Electrocute. I tried everything. Magic Missile does a nice amount of damage. Shock Pulse is like, I don't even know what to think of Shock Pulse. It used to be cool, now it's like, I don't know anymore. Spectral Blade is just for rare, very, very rare occasions where you go for a melee build. I actually made a melee build for Wizard. It actually works really well. But Electrocute, since we're going for Arcane Dynamo, Electrocute benefits so much from attack speed. You put your Arcane or your signature stacks so quickly, so fast. It is like the best way to go if you want to go for Arcane Dynamo. And in here we have a couple of skill runes, of course. Chain Lightning. The damage is really poor. It's nice that you hit 10 enemies and that your Arcane Dynamo builds up pretty fast, but the damage is pretty poor. Fork Lightning, critical hits release 4 charge bolt in random directions, dealing 40% weapon damage as fired to enemies hit. So if you want to go for the elemental exposure, you already have your fire damage, which is kind of interesting. Fork Lightning, it just builds up really fast and it does moderate amount of damage. I see it crit for 2 to 3 million. The proc crits for almost 1 million. So for me, this is like the best thing you can take. Lightning Blast, really close. Surge of Power is really good if you have that problem getting Arcane Power back. This is like one of the runes that will help you get your Arcane Power back quickly if you are starving for it. Gain 1 Arcane Power for each enemy hit. This actually stacks up to the amount of enemies hit. So this goes up to 2 additional enemies, so that means 3 enemies in total. So that means you will be able to regain 3 Arcane Power for each enemy hit. So if you have a nice amount of attack speed, attack it quickly, attack a group quickly, gain Arcane Power back, and continue to cast Arcane Torrent. So Surge of Power is actually really well. And Arc Lightning is meh. It's really close, it's melee range. So it's either Fork Lightning for massive damage. Massive, it's nice damage. Or if you are Arcane Power Staffed, Electrocute, Surge of Power, which is really, really good. Alright, let's move on to Magic Weapon, shall we? Magic Weapon is like the God-given for every wizard out there. A wizard that doesn't have Magic Weapon is like, what are you doing? Imbue your weapon with magical energy, granting it 10% increased damage last 10 minutes. It's like, wait, what? Electrify, attacks have a chance to cast lightning to attack 3 nearby enemies. It's a really fun gimmick, but it's not really working very well. Force Weapon, however. Increased damage bonus of Magic Weapon to 20% more damage. This means that your weapon is doing 20% more damage. It's insane. It is beautiful. Combine this with everything we already have here. 10%, 15%, 15%, 60%. It is beautiful. It stacks up so high. This is why a wizard is like the, in my honest opinion, one of the easiest classes to play, because you have so much utility from out of your own that you can buff yourself with, that you don't even need a strong gear set in order to do nice amounts of damage. But we're not there yet. It even gets better. If you have a problem getting arcane power, magic weapon conduit, enemies hit by your attacks restore up to 3 arcane power. It's insane. You attack so fast. You will not be able to run out of mana at all. It is absolutely mental. Take this in combination with the, I'm going to show you everything. I mean, take this in combination with astral power or arcane power regeneration. There are a couple of skills more even to increase your arcane power regeneration, including familiar. We'll get to that in a short while. You will not be able to run out of arcane power very, very fast. You will be able to spam your arcane torrent, do massive amounts of damage, but only take conduit if you really have arcane power problems. The 10% damage is definitely worth it if you see your orb slowly draining. At one point you have to start casting Electrocute anyway, because you have to refill this Flashes of Insight, the Arcane Dynamo. Only take Conduit if you have arcane power problems. Ignite attacks have a chance to burn enemies, dealing 300% weapon damage as fire over 3 seconds. It's nice, and it actually does a nice amount of damage, but it simply doesn't compete with the 10% extra damage bonus, which you get from me, because this boosts everything, and this is just... It can be nice for really big packs, and single target is also not really that bad, but I wouldn't take it. And Deflection is very, very nice. When you perform an attack, gain protective shield for 3 seconds that absorbs almost 11k damage. This shield is always up. So it's like having a additional extra armor, resistance, health. It's just something there. But only take this if you have so much trouble surviving. But I would rather take the dominance, the passive skill, than this one in over all these, because these are too good to pass on. So energy armor, also one of the best things in the game. Before I go into energy armor, however, I'm gonna show you something really quickly into storm armor. Again, if you have trouble with your arcane power and you're like, my god, why am I still struggling with my regeneration? In storm armor, there is this little skill rune that is called Power of the Storm, reduces the arcane power cost of all skills by 3 while storm armor is active. What does storm armor do? Bathe yourself in electrical energy, periodically shielding a nearby enemy for 175 weapon damage as lightning. This is nothing. It doesn't do damage at all. But if you have so much trouble getting your arcane power back, this might actually help you. But this is like on the worst situation that you're like, what happened to my regeneration? Always take energy armor because it is so good. Now a couple of runes here in as well. You have a chance to gain full arcane power when you are hit by a range or melee attack. Don't take it, because normally even though we take skills that allow us to be hit, let's be honest, you don't want to get hit. I mean, you don't want to have this big boss smashing your face in, so don't take this one. Pinpoint barrier, energy armor also increases your critical hit chance by 5%. It is so good. I try to go above 50% critical hit chance, and after that I start min-maxing my other stats. Attack speed, and especially critical hit damage. Especially that one. But I want to be over that 50%. At this moment I'm actually sitting on 55%. And if I take this, I'm sitting on 60%. Which is a really nice number, but I don't really need it anymore, because I already have 55% crit chance. Go above 50% and you're good to go. Energy tap, rather than decreasing your maximum arcane power, energy armor increases by 20. Once again, if you have trouble getting your arcane power back, this will help you. Force armor incoming attacks will deal blah blah blah. Don't take it. It's worthless. This, however, is like, wow. Energy armor also increases your resistance to all damage type at 25%. It is like 25%. That is insane. That is beautiful. So if you have trouble surviving, energy armor and prismatic armor, and your survivability goes like, it's there. it suddenly appeared like, hey, I can take this hit now. Before you were like, oh my god, what happened to my insights? And now it's like, oh, I can actually take this. So in here you have 3 options. Trouble surviving prismatic armor. Trouble getting your arcane power back. Energy tap. Just not enough crit. Pinpoint barrier. Everything is perfect. Everything that you want is in this energy armor already. And energy armor, actually, I didn't even talk about this, I'm sorry. Focus your energy, increasing your armor by 35%. So this already increases your survivability, but it is decreasing your maximum arcane power. If you have enough regeneration, you're not gonna notice that 20, but it increases your armor. So again, with the Unwavering Will, increases armor by 20%. Energy armor increases your armor by 35%. That is 55% increased armor. You will be able to take a couple of hits on higher levels. You will not be like instantly smashed. It is beautiful. It is awesome. And now, no, not yet, not yet. I was like, now let's go to Arcane Torrent, but not yet, not yet. Let's go for Familiar first. So Familiar, it is once again. The wizard comes with like every tools in the game in order to be like, I'm awesome. It's perfect. Sparkflint. Summon a Fury Fire Mount. No. Let's start with this. Summon a Familiar that attacks your enemies 240% weapon damage as arcane. So once again, if you want to go for the... I have to keep pressing all these buttons. Once again, if you want to go for the elemental exposure, the Familiar already does arcane damage. So you're going to be stacking up almost everything that you want, except for cold. I don't think we actually used that, but no, I don't think so. But this already does arcane. It's really cool. It does a lot of damage. It can crit up to millions. I'm not really sure how much it is, but it can crit up to millions. It cannot die, and it will always be there just floating around you. As you can see right here, it's this little ball that you see floating around me. So, in here I have a couple of runes as well, and these runes are beautiful. Sparkflint. Summon a fairy familiar that grants you 10% increased damage. Once again, 10% increased damage. You don't need special gear in order to do a big, nice chunk of damage on a wizard. Again, 10% more damage. Icicle. A familiar projectile with 35% chance to freeze the enemy. Never take that, it's horrible. Ancient Guardian. Never take that either. Arcanaut. Yes. They buffed this to hell. I don't know why they buffed it, but while the familiar is active, you regenerate 4.5 arcane power every second. That is insane. That is a lot. I'm actually running with this, and once again, as you can see, I have almost 17 arcane power regeneration. 4.5. The moment you start having trouble, take this and your troubles are over, my friend. It's gone. And then you have Cannoneer. The familiar projectile that explodes on impact, dealing 240% weapon damage as arcane to all enemies within 6 yards. It is also very, very nice. So in here, if you want to go for pure maximum damage, Sparkflint. Trouble getting your arcane power regeneration, Arcanaut. If you want to go for massive AoE damage, including area damage, this will benefit from that as well. Go for Cannoneer. I'm also going to take a look at our Paragon points, especially area on hit effects. With Arcane Torrent, area on hit is absolutely mental. Cannoneer also benefits from that. And now the best spell in the game, Arcane Torrent. Costs 16 arcane power. Where Frost 16, Arcane Orb 30, Disintegrate 18. Arcane Torrent. Hurl a barrage of arcane projectiles that deal 400% weapon damage as arcane to all enemies near the impact explosion. So this means it already does a little bit of AoE. Not much, but it's like very little. So that's already something really nice. Arcane Torrent damage is increased by 305% weapon damage every second, up to a maximum of 1000 weapon damage as arcane. Arcane is something that we're going for. We're going to buff everything we have on our gear, as you can see right here. Oh, wrong button. Arcane skills deal 60% more damage. Arcane skills deal 15% more damage. Arcane skills deal 17% more damage. Increase arcane torment damage. Arcane skills deal 10% more damage. I think I had something else. I think maybe that's it, but everything is increased by so much. If you take a look over here, Arcane Torment damage 63%, Arcane Torrent damage 15%. Everything is already increased. So this damage, which you see right here, is even more. It's gonna be insane. Since we will be standing casting this, it is considered a continuous cast, meaning it will always be up to 1000% weapon damage as Arcane. Combine this with Unwavering Will, it increasing 10%. Combine this with Arcane Dynamo, 60% additional damage. You can see where we're going, my friend. You can see that we are actually doing a ton of damage with this spell already. And then we have all these cool runes. We still have everything we can play from. Which is basically only 2 things, but still we're gonna go for everything. Flame Ward. If you have trouble surviving, you take 15% less damage from attacks while channeling. Every second you channel increases this amount by 5% up to a maximum of total of 25% reduction. Arcane Torment damage turns into fire. So if you have so much trouble surviving, you can take this and you take 25% flat out less damage. So you go to a boss and you're like, oh crap, I took the wrong skill. Take this one instead, go accept, you will be safe. Going to prismatic armor, 25% more resistance, you'll be safe. I never take it though. Death Blast will get you killed most of the times. It is fun to see a big explosion of like 30 million, you're like, ooh, that's nice. But if 10 of the hits don't hit, it doesn't really work. Static Discharge. Each missile explodes into 2 piercing bolts of electricity that deals each 150% weapon damage as lightning. This is what they changed in 2.1 and it is amazing. Normally I would have gone for Cascade. Cascade was really cool. Flame Ward used to be all enemies take 15% additional arcane damage over 5 seconds. So they changed it into this. And it would even be more damage, but they changed it. And now we have this one, Lightning. Each missile explodes into 2 piercing bolts. Since you will be doing so much with your attack speed, because you're gonna have attack speed no matter what. There is so much piercing bolts on the floor. You do so much AoE damage. It is really, really powerful. And Cascade, enemies hit by Arcane Torrent have a 12.5% chance to fire a new missile at nearby enemies, dealing even more weapon damage as Arcane. Personally, I am still choosing between Cascade or Static Discharge. I would, in my honest opinion, if you have a ton of attack speed and you still have your arcane power regeneration, go for Cascade. The more attacks you do, the faster you will be able to hit the 12.5% chance. The faster you have a chance of proccing that effect. If not, go for Static Discharge because you will have that effect no matter what. This will do more damage because the bolts will explode everywhere. Combine that with Arcanaut, combine it with area on hit, you will do a ton of damage. But in my honest opinion, go for Static Discharge because for me that works really well. Alright, I have been talking for a long while without editing actually, so I'm hoping that this goes alright. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna show you a couple of videos now, or just a small video as to where I run a rift, a greater rift, some bounties with a nice cool music so you can actually see how much damage this build does. And it's been a while since I actually made a video about Diablo and it's really fun again. The game is so much better now with 2.1. They added so much, the vaults, the gems, the greater rifts, the changes to the gear, the changes to the spells and the runes, and it feels like a whole new game. And I try this arcane build out and you're not gonna be disappointed. It's hella fun. Anyway guys, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. We're still growing very, very steadily, but we're still growing out there. We already reached 105,000 views out there, so that is really, really awesome, and I want to thank you for that. And I hope you have fun watching the video, and as always, keep on winning. You don't even see my thumb, do you? Keep on winning. There we go.
Bye.